Okay, so here we are, James, with a huge amount of Sony kit here, all A series kit and mirrorless kit. I see we've got some old pieces as well. Do you want to start us off right in the right-hand corner there and tell us what you got?
So actually what we've got is the full mirrorless range from Sony. There's a couple missing, but we'll go through that. And the one we've got over here is actually the X7 or any X7.
Yeah.
This is the oldest camera really on the table, but it's a good introduction really to what we're going to be talking about. So we've got different size sensors in the Sony products, and these are their APS-C size sensors. So this is an X7, which is a few years old now, but there's a couple in the range now which are more modern. The A6000 is probably the most prominent in the market.
And is that the sort of almost replacement for that kind of shape and size, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, very similar build and styling. Designed really for the enthusiast or someone just starting in their photography. Kind of at an entry-level price point, but this gives you some fantastic features. So it's 11 frames per second.
Wow.
So great for your sports, your wildlife.
Given it is a small mirrorless camera, it's pretty incredible, isn't it? 11 frames a second.
Yeah, I mean, that will rival some of the more premium DSLRs that we see on the market in terms of frames per second. And the focusing can keep up as well. I mean, I recently took one of these on with me to Namibia on a safari trip. And I was really impressed when it managed to keep up with a cheetah, which was hunting. So it's one of the fastest animals on the planet, and this camera kept up with it.
So you were pretty lucky to see that then?
Yeah, I was very lucky, very lucky. But luckily the camera kept up and let me take some photos home with me as well.
Fantastic.
So yeah, this is the A6000. It's an APS-C size sensor. There's a couple of other products with the APS-C size sensor. But really from there's the next step up, which is to the larger sensors. Now, a larger sensor is going to give you better image quality, as we're probably aware. And the entry level for that is going to be the A7.
So the A7 series now is making inroads, isn't it, into the photography world?
Yeah.
And this is where it starts, yeah, the A7.
Yeah, this is the A7 Mark I. So there's now a second generation of this product as well, and I'll talk you through the differences in a moment. But they're both 24 megapixel sensors, so very high resolution sensors, which can be suitable for your prints or anything like that.
And this is full frame, and that's I guess the key part of this, because it is a small body, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean the rival for these is going to be the larger DSLRs. Canon, Nikon obviously produce these, but this is the first time we've seen a full frame sensor in a mirrorless camera,
Okay,
and this is kind of when Sony started to get noticed for what they were doing with mirrorless. From there, they've expanded the range.
We've got some of that range here, obviously.
Yes, yeah. I mean, the next one, logical one to talk about, probably the A7 Mark II, which is this one here.
Okay. I see you've got a Canon lens on the A7 II.
So this is a little bit confusing, really, but we can now adapt other glass and other lenses to the Sony bodies. So this is using a Metabones adapter, which allows me to use my Canon glass while retaining my aperture control, my autofocus features, my image stabilization. I mean, compatibility varies between camera model and lens.
Sure.
But there's various adapters out there, and it just sits between the body and the lens.
And this is a 100mm Canon L lens as well. I mean, that is a pretty sharp lens. I've used that myself. Awesome lens, and you chose to put it on that A7 II.
Yeah, I mean, one of the benefits from there is the kind of upgrade that we see between the A7 and the A7 Mark II is they've built image stabilization into the camera body.
Okay, so no image stabilization in the lens for sort of many legacy glass, but that has an image stabilizer in the 100mm, doesn't it? So is that making double impact?
Yeah, it depends on the lens and the compatibility again, but where possible, the camera will use both. But it makes it great for use, as you say, with older lenses as well. So I've got a lot of old, what we call legacy glass, which is lenses that are probably older than me, which I adapt onto the camera.
Well, thanks for that. Yeah.
I adapt onto the camera, and then they benefit from the stabilization in the body.
Okay.
So that was one of the big upgrades between the A7 and the A7 Mark II. They also changed the build, and it's probably quite tricky to see on this video, but it's a bit more rugged. There's a bit more size to it, partly because of that stabilization, but also just from a grip point of view.
Yeah, let me have a feel of that as well, because it has changed, hasn't it, the grip and the feel.
Yeah.
And, it really does feel quite substantial now.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent.
As well as that, they also upgraded the focusing. So one of the gripes, I guess, people have with mirrorless is sometimes the focusing speed, but the technology advancements we're seeing are fantastic.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you there. I mean, the focusing systems were what held me back from really contemplating going to mirrorless, but I've got to say, after playing with this, it's come on leaps and bounds, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we've been using them today on video. I mean, this is an A7 Mark II here on a Steadicam. And it's been fantastic. You've got the combination of the steadiness from the Steadicam, plus the in-body stabilisation. We've got some fantastic footage from it.
Right.
I guess
So that's the A7 and the A7
Yep.
II. We got one more on the table to play with as well, and that's the A7S. Yeah?
Yes.
So the S came out about just over a year ago, I think now.
Yeah, getting close to a year now, yeah.
Yeah, and again, got people talking, didn't it? Tell us why then, James. There it is.
Yeah, I mean, the A7S, again, full frame sensor. So we got that great image quality. But what they went for with the A7S wasn't so much about megapixels, which is kind of what we're used to seeing in the industry. But they actually went for ISO. Okay. That's for your low light performance, for anyone that's not aware. But they pumped the ISO up in this to 409,000. Which is industry leading by quite a long way.
Absolutely.
This thing can see in the dark, basically.
Yeah.
It's also perfect for videographers. There's a lot of video features built into these cameras.
Well, I think it was designed mainly with videographers in mind, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was really the target market for a lot of it. But we see a lot of photographers picking them up as well, particularly for kind of city street work.
Yep.
Any low light situations, even gig photographers are starting to use these, just because of that low light performance.
So we've got the 55mm Zeiss on there as well,
Yep.
1.8. Cracking lens, really, really sharp. That's certainly going to help as well, even with that ISO range, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I guess one of the other gripes people have with mirrorless, and particularly I think Sony get a bit for this, is the lack of accessories and lenses. And I think it's fair to say they're not really in that situation anymore. We've got quite a few on the table.
Yeah, definitely.
If we talk through a couple of them, so...
Well, we've got the 24-240 here, haven't we?
Yes, so again, this is on an A7S. So this is an all-in-one lens, really. So perfect as a walk-around lens. It's still quite compact as well. This is still smaller than me taking out my DSLR for the day. But I've still got my full-frame sensor. So I've got my image quality, and I've got a massive zoom range on that lens.
Yeah.
So that's kind of their all-rounder lens. They've also got a couple of what I call premium or professional lenses.
Yep.
So they do a 2470, which I think we've got here. So that's
right,
a 2470 f4.
Zeiss lens.
Yeah, very common lens for wedding photographers, event photographers.
Yep.
They look at that focal length.
And this is f4.
F4, yeah.
Yeah.
They do very similar to that. They do a 70 to 200, which we don't have here today, but it's also an f4.
Yep.
So again, they're looking at that kind of those two key lenses for any event photographers. Primes, they're fantastic. I mean, they've got a range out
so
now.
this is the 35mm.
Yep.
Extremely small. It's fairly lightweight as well. 49mm thread on the front. Great lens and extremely sharp. Used this quite a few times. Awesome lens.
Yeah, very popular with street photographers, architecture, that kind of stuff looks really nice on 35. It's a very common focal length. Yeah. And then the other thing we've got there is the flash gun. And
yeah, the i40.
Yeah, I mean, the reason we've put this out, again, comes back to this link with accessories. And third parties are starting to kind of become aware of what's happening with the industry, and they're starting to produce stuff like this for mirrorless cameras. And this is probably one of the first third-party accessory flash guns we've seen for Sony.
Yeah, and this one's won several awards as well, I believe, doesn't it?
Yes, yeah, it has. It's this form factor on this is unreal. So it's small. It's really small. But it puts out the same power that you'd see in most of the kind of flash guns that you're used to seeing on DSLRs.
And I guess this suits the system, really, doesn't it? I mean, it's pointless having a really lovely small camera like this and then putting a massive flash gun on the top.
That's it. And I mean, that will fit nice and tidily in your camera bag. And bags that previously I'd fit one DSLR in and two lenses, I'm now getting two camera bodies, four lenses, my flash gun. It makes a huge difference to how much I can take out with me on a day.
Absolutely.
But this is full TTL, manual control, everything like that as well. So yeah, there's a great range out there now, I guess.
Now, one thing I've got to ask you is that we've got these little red and black kind of lugs, I think, really you would refer to them as, on our cameras. Okay, talk us through what they're about, James.
Yeah, so these are actually called anchor points, and they're made by a company called Peak Design. And when I've got a few camera bodies now, one of the things that was always winding me up was the camera strap.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I hate it when you open a bag and they're in the way, you pull it out, another camera body comes out. So what these do is they allow you to very quickly put them on the camera and take them off. So it's just a simple anchor point that clips in, and that will clip on there, and then you've got one there, and you can switch that very quickly to the other A7S. Clip it straight in, and that's ready to go.
Yeah.
So if I'm using a tripod or something like that as well, I can quickly take the strap off. I don't know if you've ever been doing landscape photography, straps hanging down from the tripod.
Absolutely.
Swinging
And videography as well. You don't want straps flowing in front of your
Yes,
camera.
yeah.
Videography. This is the slightly larger one. This is called the Slide, isn't it?
Yes, so that's more for perhaps slightly heavier bodies or lenses. So we had that one, I think that was with the 24 to 240, because there's a bit more weight to that, but suitable for your SLR users as well.
But again, the same anchor points as well, really
exactly
clip
the
on
same.
nice and easy. And there's one other as well, which is what we've got here, which is the cuff.
Yeah, so that just goes around your wrist, and I guess this is more of a safety thing than anything, so that will just sit around your wrist. So when you're carrying your camera around, you can just clip it in there, and you're not going to drop your camera anywhere, so it's just attached straight on.
Great stuff.
So yeah, really great range of products. I'm using them now with pretty much all my cameras. It just means I can switch them around as needed.
Awesome. Okay, so I guess the big question is, where do people start? Which one do they get?
Yeah, it is tricky. It is really tricky. And I guess it depends on what kind of photography you do and what kind of budget. If you're looking for something really compact, all-rounder, without spending a whole load of money, the starting point really is kind of the crop sensors, the APS-C sensors, something like the A6000.
Yeah, incredible focus speed.
That's it. Great for your sports, wildlife, anything like that. If you want to take a step up in quality, then you want to start looking at the A7 series.
And this is where we start to go to full frame.
Yeah, so you've got the A7, the A7 Mark II.
Yep.
So differences really being kind of just some upgraded features between those.
Like image stabilization.
That's it.
Yeah.
And then the A7S is low light, and there's one we haven't really mentioned as well. So there's the A7R.
Yeah, and there's an R2 right
Yes,
now.
yeah, it's just come out. So the A7R, very similar form factor, looks pretty much the same, but the difference is they're high resolution sensors.
Yeah.
So on the original Mark 1, I believe it was a 36 megapixel sensor, but it was more than enough for your studio work. Anything like landscape work where you really want to crop in. The upgrade, they upped the resolution, but they also added in that in-body stabilization. And the thing that everyone's talking about is the focusing speed.
Yeah.
So I haven't had a chance to play with one yet. Really looking forward to it though, and hopefully we'll bring you a video when we do.
Absolutely. Look forward to that.
Yeah, it's going to be a great product. So really excited to see one. But that's the range. There's something out there for everyone, really. Depends on your price point, depends on what you want the camera to do. But hopefully that gives you a bit of an overview of Sony.
Great stuff. Well, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks.